Knives are cool. And axes too. Hello everybody, Robert Breaker here. And I've been out fishing today. And here's what we got on the cast net. Oh yeah, so how many do we have here? It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I thought I'd do a video with my Marttinni knife that I did a video on about how the man was a preacher in Finland who started this company. And maybe we'll do a catch, clean, and cook in this video. And I'll go ahead and clean them with the scales on, and then we'll go up and we'll cook them here in a minute. Here we go. So we're gonna cut this fish, and I cut it down that way. And because it's such a fine point and so sharp, I do that. Most people might be cringing, no, not the guts. Well, I go very shallow so that I don't get into the guts. Then I come here, and oh, this knife is really doing a good job. Yes, it's my first time to use this knife out in action. So I like videos on knives. So far I've just showed you knives. Aren't they cool? But I wanted to also do actual hands-on, actually use them. So we're doing this here. For those that don't know, these are called mullet. And if you're in Florida, you like mullet. If you go a little bit more west, you don't. Because the water gets dirtier the farther you go in the Gulf of Mexico. My dad grew up in Seabrook, Texas, and he said the water was crystal clear and clean and beautiful when he was a kid. But they have allowed all these offshore oil rigs and things like that to come in, and the water is just not as clean now as it used to be. And these kind of fish here are bottom feeders, and because of that, you want them in clean water. You don't want this fish in dirty water because you're gonna have whatever was on the bottom in their belly. So these are more of something that we eat here in Florida. Now, I can leave those in. See that beautiful piece of meat right there? I could leave those in. And some people are saying, oh, you're wasting it. Not really. We're actually gonna use this in the garden, but I always just cut right across like that. And boom, there goes all of the bones. So yes, I am very much impressed with and am very happy with this knife. And it does move pretty well. So there's one. I'll try not to lose it. This one has some eggs in it. Some people will eat these eggs. Oh, those are good. I'm gonna save that. Well, maybe not. It falls apart too easy. But the male are white and the female are yellow when it comes to mullet. Now, if you're right-handed like me, it gets a little bit harder to do the other side. So I usually come down here like this, and this will be the test of this knife, and start the other direction like that. And again, be very careful if you do leave the scales on, because it is kind of hard to cut in between those scales. But you'll see later why I leave the scales on as we cook this thing. Somehow it gives you a richer flavor, and I think it's called, Laura, is it omega-3 oil that these fish have?
In the skin.
And when you leave the skin on that and cook it, that omega oil just kind of comes out into the meat. Now, the last thing you want to do is go into these guts. So you've got to be very, very careful. Never do it up into your face, always away if you do this. But this is years of practice, you know? And there are several ways to clean a fish. This is my favorite way because I like to do these over a grill, and over the grill with the scales down. That's how I do it. Now, Laura said she wanted to keep that for our garden.
Oh yeah.
So here's our piece of meat. Now this could be fried and you could just eat around the bones. There's some good meat there, but we're gonna throw that in the garden. And as you can tell, being right-handed, I don't do as well on one side as I do another. But there's some good food here. And boy, I can't wait to eat it. Now there's a channel out there that I watch sometimes called Deer Meat for Dinner. And that reminds me of him when I do something like this. He's an amazing fella, catching and all those things. People ask me, what other channels do you like to watch? Look at all those fish eggs, man. So these are Florida mullet. Here we go again. Must be very careful because I didn't take off any of the scales, and I have to be very, very careful because the knife could slip on top of those scales. So this is years of practice. It's funny, I'm working in fish egg. It is what, April already? I guess this is, well, I think I caught some in January, but the water's still cold, so the fish are just now starting to come back into the bay. And to me, this is the easiest way to get that meat close to the bone. Oh, that's coming off as a beautiful fillet right there. And uh-oh, you don't want that. You don't want to get into the guts. That's what you don't want.
What'd you get in the guts, honey?
Why'd you have to get into the guts? So, we got our good, we got our leftover for the garden. So there's a good one. Then we cut that off. And this is all about this knife, and I am really liking this Marttinni knife. I've had lots of other fillet knives, and they are very thick and not as thin. And I like the thinness of this. I'm really gonna have to wash it good because I've got a lot of salt water on it. There are your fish eggs, if anyone likes fish eggs. To me, they taste, dare I say it, fishy. And I'm just not a fan, but they're yellow ones and white ones. Well, the white ones would be what? From the male. And the yellow ones would be the actual eggs. So if you eat fish eggs from a mullet, a lot of people say you eat the white with the yellow. You don't eat one or the other. The yellow are very, very dry, and the white are very, very, not liquidy, but very, like...
Creamy?
Creamy, yeah, that's the word. Very creamy. And so that's why they're good together. So don't worry, you won't have any new baby in your belly growing, because that's what they're for. The white's supposed to fertilize the yellow. Yeah, see, I'm butchering this one.
Yeah, you are.
I wish I had a wife that was left-handed and I could just hand it off to her. She'd do it perfect, right? Although that is not too bad. Look how close that is to those right there. This is good stuff. When I lived in Honduras, every year they would plant. They'd plant their corn. And they would always put 3 pieces of corn, 3 kernels, and a small fish, small dried fish in the hole. And I've learned since then that that's an Indian tradition to always put a little fish in for fertilizer when you're planting. So we're going to try that this year. We're going to use some of this fish here in our garden and see how that comes and works. Okay, so dividing it up here. Elise, would you run in and get us a tray?
Of course.
Those are some pretty good. I mean, I think we figured it out. That looks like a little bit of meat right here, not a lot. But I figured it out that about 6 of a bigger size one feeds our family. That's 12 fillets, because you can cut the fillet into like chicken fingers, and they do plump up just a little bit when you're cooking them, as you'll see. So again, leaving on the scales. And see how it slips if you're not careful. I like this knife, but it is easy to slip a little, and if you're not careful. So, mullet. Now, I do speak Spanish, hablo español, and this fish here is one of the slickest fish. When you see in the water what we call a slick, some people call it a trout slick, it's actually usually a mullet slick. And a slick is, the water is different than the rest of the water because it's the slipperiness comes off of these. And so that's called a slick. In Spanish, the word for these is liso. And liso actually means slippery. So that's what the Spaniards, and I always think, because we live across the bay from Pensacola, Florida. Pensacola is the oldest city in America. And I know people in St. Augustine will fight me on that. But 1560 beats 1564. 1564, St. Augustine was built. Yes, it is the oldest standing city in America, still standing. But they founded Pensacola first in 1560. So it really is the oldest city in America. It's just that in 1561 or 2 or 3, somewhere in there, everything they built, the hurricane wiped out. So they said, okay, let's start over in St. Augustine. So the oldest standing city in America is St. Augustine, Florida. but Pensacola was founded before that. Lots of fish eggs here. And so this Spanish word is liso. Every so often, Spain sends over a boat called the El Cano, which is an old, huge, beautiful sailing vessel. And it is an official Spanish warship, but it's all set on sail. And we got to go and tour it one time. I took the kids and we took a tour and had a wonderful time talking to people in true Castilian Spanish that were Spanish soldiers on board. And we saw some of these swimming and I said, liso. And they said, yes, liso. And then they gave me another name and I never remembered that other name. So if you speak Spanish and you're familiar with this fish, tell me what the other name of that is. This fish is in Castellano, Castilian Spanish. I would love to remember that other name. Leave that in the comments. And I always think about that. I love history and I just always think of what life must have been like for those early Spaniards who founded this area. And these would have been the fish they were catching. Matter of fact, even today, I use a cast net. There's a certain kind of a cast net that's called a Spanish bag net, because that's from what the Spaniards were doing. So we got a lot here. I can't wait to get out there and start eating these. Some people, they don't know how to do stuff like this, but to me, it is fun, 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 and I enjoy it. So why don't you go ahead and turn it off, honey, and the next thing will be throwing it on the grill. Okay, well, we're done cleaning. That took a little while. Now we're out here to do the cooking. And this is our burn pit. We had a bunch of leaves we raked in there. This is a little something I built. I put 2 cement blocks, one on either side, and then I put that down here in order to cook on. And this is a little something different I'm gonna try. This is called a Swedish candle. And you use your chainsaw, do 6 cuts, begins to burn from the inside out, and you can literally put that on there and cook on it. Only I'm not getting a lot of flame out of that. I'm gonna let that sit a little longer. But now that COVID is over, it's over, right? Post-COVID is the greatest, because who needs to start a fire the old-fashioned way when these are 5 cents at what, CVS or Walgreens or someplace? This is the greatest way to start a fire. Check it out. Flume. What does it say?
79%?
72% alcohol. Oh yeah, that's a good fire starter right there. Look at that flame coming out. So thank you, COVID, for letting life be easier for starting a fire with these things. 5 cents. You got a bunch of these for 5 cents, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were normally what?
$10.
$10 for that. Oh, gotta clean your hands so we don't get sick. 5 cents now, and now we can start a fire. So that's kind of cool. So we're gonna let the fire get started a little better, and then we're gonna put our fish over here on it. Let me bring that to you. It doesn't look so great, but it's on ice. And once we get a nice fire going, we'll try it. Now these little pieces, Laura said she's gonna put in fish stock, so inside she'll boil. But this is our fish. We're battling the sun here, so I hope we get enough light to be able to do this. Gotta let our fires get started here. I'm gonna try cooking on 2 different platforms. So here we go. Hot. Scale side down. Ooh, I can hear it making the good old noise. You hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Starting to sizzle, and we're getting a good smoky thing going on. Let's go over here. That sizzle, man. I think God made the sizzle so that it would start your taste buds to start going. You know what I mean? Because you hear the sizzle, it's just like you start salivating. Oh, I'm hungry. That's almost cooking too fast. See how it's getting white on the outsides? If I could pick this up somehow, there might be a way to do that. With a stick or something to make it higher up. when in doubt, you kind of improvise. And I hope I don't lose everything right here on the ground, you know? It's not hot, so there we go. That's better. That's called improvising, right? So you want the whole thing as white as that little end piece right there. It's gonna take a while for it all to turn white. Once it's white, it's ready to go. Okay, this roe is not my favorite, but we are gonna try it, and I'm afraid it might fall through. So if it falls through, it falls through, no big loss. It's not the best tasting stuff. Yeah, that's one that falls through. There's a scale on that one. But some people love the roe, some people don't. So what I want is I want it over the fire. I do not want to flip it. I know that might seem odd, but if you flip it, it's flaky and it flakes off and falls apart. So I'm wanting that skin to get cooked and cook it all the way through to the other side. See there? My fire is starting to go out a little. But I want to make sure it gets white, and it's getting there slowly. Ooh, hot. And I burned my eggs on one side. Yeah, I don't know if I'll eat those eggs. See how they fall apart too easily? My dad loved these. I've just never been a fan, but I thought I'd cook them for whoever wants to see. That's how you cook fish eggs. And they almost look like a little mini sausage, don't they? Tell you, bratwurst. We'll call it fishwurst. All right, some of these are done, so we're gonna get these that are. Oh, look how it's just falling off of the skin. See that? Now that black thing, a lot of people don't like, but it's not bad if it's fresh. If it sits long, that black color is nasty. But some of these are ready. We're gonna take them off, and hopefully I'll show you how easily the skin peels off. But this one's maybe a little too close to the fire here. That one looks done. Oh yeah. So, see if you can come in on the plate. Here's your meat. Flipping it over. There's your, well, there's your skin, and I burned it, of course, but it should come off perfectly, and it doesn't because I overcooked it. But do you see that oily color, that yellow? That's your omega colors. That's the flavor right there, man. Woo. Oh man, that yellow is the flavor of this meat. Oh man, honey, I can't describe it. It's just like a good fishy oil flavor. And you see how white that is inside there? Now I like my fish blackened. And I sure blackened this one. Burned all of them, didn't I? Still hot. But you gotta do it when it's hot. Otherwise, you don't get it. So see that? Zoom in on that. See if you can get that yellow color. Now that would not be there. I don't think that would cook into the meat without the skin on it. So here we go. Hope I don't get a scale. And the only problem is sometimes you get a bite of a scale. It was like you're eating chicken and it tastes like fish. Oh man, that is so good. More, please. I could live on this. There's that yellow, kind of oily. Those bites so far. Let me go get all these before they get too overcooked. Really, I was too close to the fire on all these, so that skin should not have gotten that black, but it's okay, we can deal with it. So there's the meat, and a lot of little black chunks in there. So one thing we learned today is this is not a cooking channel. And I am not a chef. I can catch them, I can clean them. I think you're gonna be the one cooking them from now on. But even though I overcooked a lot of it, it's just so good. So if you need some activated charcoal, this is a good way to do that. Scale. It's a good way to get some activated charcoal. There is the perfect piece. So I never claimed to be a cook, but it was fun cooking and doing this with you. See you later. Bye-bye. Knives are cool.
and axes too.
Bullseye.